But here's the thing. Because I was not seeking and fulfilling my purpose as it was supposed to be, and I knew I was probably supposed to be going playing baseball somewhere and running from my problems, I began to drink. And that was just really the beginning. I drank, I smoked, I ate too much, and a whole bunch of other things as well, because I was basically running from myself. Well, I got my first full-time job in radio down in the cornfields of Clarion, Iowa. Met some wonderful people down there, but my drinking increased, my rebellion increased, and the job down there, I lost it in the summer of 1983. Well, I came back to Wisconsin, wound up with a pretty nice radio gig at a place called WNAM Radio, and I was getting high ratings. I was presenting myself on the radio, somebody I wasn't, because deep inside I was miserable. I would go home and drink, and it was not a great situation. And that escalated until Friday, July 31st, 1987. I knew it wasn't good. It was only 1 hour into my shift. I was called into the boss's office. They sat me down with the program director, my friend Bob, and the general manager, and they said, "Steve, we can't put up with your insubordination and your rebellion anymore. You're fired." And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. How would the radio station be able to get on without me? Well, they did actually pretty well. They said, "Would you like us to close the drapes so you can weep?" I said, "I appreciate that." And they told me under no uncertain terms that I was gone. And so, as some of you maybe have known in the corporate world, you grab your box with the flour and the headphones and everything, and they led me like a prisoner out the door of the radio station, and when that door closed behind me, my sentence was about to begin. And about a couple weeks into that, when I was on a drunken binge, I woke up one morning. I was in a kind of a twilight. I said, "Am I dying?" It was a peaceful place. I knew I wasn't sleeping, but I wasn't awake. And in my vision, I looked up, and I was sitting on the lawn of my childhood home with my grandfather, who had worked on the farm. And we were laying back, and in the clouds was written, "Major Voice in palm of hand." And I can only speculate as to what that meant then. But I share that with you here, 35 years later. Major Voice in palm of hand. And it was encouraging to me. But I still was not in the place where I was going to change my lifestyle. The drinking increased, the rebellion increased, until we got involved in a radio station. We were involved in the ownership of it. And it went south very fast. Let me tell you, when you set out with something and you don't have a plan to where you're going, you'll get there faster than you want to go, and it is not good. There was another issue. It was me. My drinking had increased. My rebellion had increased, until all of a sudden I woke up on the morning of April 15th, 1991. I said, "I got to do something. This is not good." It felt like one foot was on the boat and one was on the dock, and the boat was leaving. I knew I needed to make a decision. I looked up at the living room. I felt the bedroom ceiling. It was very heavy. I looked over. The clock flicked on 8:21, and I admitted, "I'm an alcoholic." And I sat up and said, "I am an alcoholic and I need help." And there was this burden lifted from me. I alerted a friend. They called. We were into counseling the day after, and I sat with a whole bunch of other people who had been chased by their demons into this place that really I knew I'd eventually be there. But there was hope in my heart, because I knew I was finally going to be able to be in that place where I could find out what I really could do. I knew I was finally in that place where if I did the work, I might be able to fulfill my purpose. Well, we were tons in debt. The bills didn't go away. We had to work on those things. I did sober up. I went to both inpatient and I had some outpatient counseling. But it took a couple of years, and all of a sudden my phone rang, and the voice on the other end said, "Steve, this is Chuck Towns. I'm from WRQ Radio in Green Bay. Would you like to come up and do a radio talk show with the Christians on the Green Bay Packers?" And I said, "Absolutely." I said, "Who's going to be co-hosting the show?" They said, "A guy by the name of Ken Rutgers." So Ken came in that first morning. I'd heard a lot about him. And all of a sudden, I saw this guy walking towards the window. He had this big white t-shirt on, and he started walking towards me. He was about 8 foot tall, and he looked like a grizzly bear. And he come to me and he said, "Hi, my name is Ken Rutgers, and being a man of total unflappability, I forgot my name." I'm Steve Rose here. He sat down and he said, "Steve," he said, "I've heard so much about you. You're going to have a great time." I said, "Ken, I'll do the best I can. So nice to meet you." He said, "Knock it off." He said, "We're going to have a great time." He said, "By the way, each Tuesday morning when I come in, I'm going to stop at the Shell station and bring you a donut and coffee. What would you like?" I said, "You're going to what?" He said, "I'm going to stop at the Shell station. What kind of donut would you like?" I said, "Well, I'd like a Long John. Better bring me one. You better not give me two, because sugar, I'll be flying through the roof. And you better make sure that that coffee is decaf, because I can speak at 700 words a minute with gusts of about 1,200. So, make sure it's decaf." And next week, I'm sitting there, I'm like, yeah, right. This guy making $3 million a year who's protecting Brett Favre's blind side, yeah, he's going to bring me coffee. The next week at about 10 to 7, here come an 8-foot teddy bear walking in with his white shirt, and he had a donut and decaffeinated coffee for me. And I thought, this is really cool. There's a sermon here. This guy who's making tons of money has come to serve and not be served. Number one is the principle of integrity. I have a favorite fast food place that I like to go to. And in this fast food place, they have this beverage dispenser. And the beverage dispenser has all these different soda pops. And I usually order water with a little lemon, but I stand in front of that thing, and every once in a while, a little voice on my shoulder says, "It's pretty hot outside. I don't think they'd really care if you took a little of the lemonade." Well, I'm proud to tell you I've never taken that bait, but I'm not above temptation. Integrity says do the right thing even when nobody's watching, right? And the thing about integrity is it can take an awful long time for you to get the trust of the people, and it can go bang just like that. One time, there was a leak underneath the faucet at home. And we put a pail under there, and after an hour or two, there wasn't much in there. But drip, 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 and finally overnight, there was a whole bunch of drips in that pail. And as I went to empty it, I kicked the bucket, and it ran out. A whole long time to get in there, but gone. And integrity can be like that as well. You take a lifetime building integrity, and then through an act, whatever it is, you can lose integrity. Second one's the principle of responsibility. When we take responsibility for our condition of our life, 100% responsibility for our lives, that is a great step to maturity. And when I woke up that morning, April 15th, 1991, knowing I needed to do something, I took responsibility. Don't get me wrong, I would have loved to have blamed a whole bunch of people for the mess I was in, but I could find the mess if I looked in the mirror. So responsibility, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Then there is the principle of self-discipline, which basically says that we need to be disciplined. I'm just reading a book from S. Truett Cathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A, written in 1989, and he said, it's easier to succeed than fail. And you're like, what are you talking about? Well, it's easier to do the things that work and stay on the right road and have some peace than to let things go, do them wrong, and then you have the cost of doing them again, the cost of the mistakes, and so you get the point. But I will tell you this, that if someone were to ask me, really, what do you think that it is, in my humble but deadly accurate opinion, that will help get people to where they're supposed to go, and the people who have truly achieved good things, I would say self-discipline. Self-discipline is a real key. You have to be able to do the hard things that nobody else wants to do. Because it's easy to be the one in the stream, the wide gate, right? It's easy to just kind of go. But it is difficult, and it takes courage to be able to do that, self-discipline.